It was a hot, muggy July day in 1954. Haneda Airport in Tokyo, Japan, was a bustling hub of international travel, a gateway connecting a post-war world. People poured in from every corner of the globe, each carrying their own unique stories and cultures. The customs and immigration process was routine, a monotonous but necessary bureaucratic hurdle. Then he appeared, a seemingly ordinary man. He looked European, well-dressed in a neat suit, blending seamlessly into the throngs of travelers. Nothing physically remarkable, nothing to make him stand out, at first. The immigration officer, a seasoned veteran of countless passenger arrivals, took the man's passport. It felt authentic in his hands, bore a professional seal, and looked like any other travel document. But as his eyes scanned the details, his routine glance morphed into a frown, then a look of utter disbelief. The passport, despite its genuine feel, was issued by a country called Taured. The officer, thinking it must be a joke, a mistranslation, or some kind of misunderstanding, checked his maps, his atlases, the official lists of sovereign nations. Nothing. Absolutely no country named Taured existed anywhere on Earth. The officer looked back at the man, who simply stood there calm and utterly adamant. Taured, he insisted, was very real. It was located between France and Spain and had existed for 1,000 years. He even pointed confidently to the supposed location on a large wall map, directly over the tiny principality of Andorra. The man's story was incredibly consistent. He claimed to be a seasoned international traveler, a businessman dealing in precious metals, on a routine business trip to Japan, just as he had been many times before. He spoke several languages fluently: Japanese, French, German, Spanish, with only a slight, unidentifiable accent. His confusion, then his growing frustration, seemed genuine. He simply could not comprehend why these officers, representatives of a modern nation, had no knowledge of his ancient, established homeland. This wasn't a delusion. He truly, unequivocally, believed Taured was real. The more the Japanese authorities questioned the man, the deeper the rabbit hole went. His story, though impossible, remained utterly unshakable, and the documents he carried were baffling. His Taured passport, despite being from a non-existent country, was incredibly detailed, almost perfectly legitimate in its construction. It bore what looked like authentic entry and exit stamps from various nations, including previous visits to Japan, visits that the Japanese authorities simply could not reconcile with their own immigration records. He also produced international driver's licenses, banknotes in a currency no one recognized, and a stack of business papers. All of it seemed genuine, yet utterly defied all logical explanation. He communicated fluently in Japanese, French, German, and other languages, expressing his bewilderment that no one knew of Taured. This wasn't a simple language barrier, this was a fundamental reality barrier. He insisted he had hotel reservations and prearranged business meetings. Authorities contacted the Imperial Hotel in Tokyo. Astonishingly, a reservation for a Mr. Taured did exist. However, when they called the company he claimed to be meeting, the company had no record of him or his supposed business. Another dead end that seemed to twist reality itself. When presented with a standard world map, his frustration turned to palpable distress. He physically recoiled, unable to find his country. He claimed the map was wrong, pointing vehemently to the small region on the border of France and Spain where Andorra sits. He passionately asserted that Taured had occupied that space for centuries, describing its detailed history, unique culture, and specific government with absolute conviction. He even produced an old, worn map from his own briefcase, which, to the officer's astonishment, clearly showed Taured in that precise location. The authorities were confounded. If this man was telling the truth, then entire chunks of recorded history, all global maps, all diplomatic records, centuries of knowledge, were fundamentally incorrect. It was an utterly impossible proposition. Initial suspicions ranged from a highly sophisticated hoaxer, a mentally disturbed individual suffering from elaborate delusions, or even a spy operating with an incredibly deep, almost theatrical cover. But his genuine frustration, his consistent story, and the disturbing authenticity of his impossible documents made every single one of these theories fall short. With no way to identify the man, and his story growing more bizarre by the hour, Japanese authorities declared him an unidentified person. They desperately needed answers, but they couldn't just let him walk away. so he was held for further questioning, placed in a hotel room at the Imperial Hotel, Tokyo. To ensure he didn't escape, if he was indeed a spy or wander off. If he was unstable, the room was meticulously selected. It was a standard hotel room, outwardly unremarkable. But 2 immigration officers were stationed directly outside his door, maintaining a round-the-clock watch. There was no other apparent way out. No fire escape, no balcony, nothing suspicious. The windows were secured, and the only exit was the door, guarded by 2 sets of eyes, 24 hours a day. It seemed utterly foolproof. The next morning, the officers, tired but vigilant, knocked on the door. No answer. They tried again, louder. Still nothing. A sense of unease began to creep in. Using a master key, they entered the room. It was empty. The man was gone. The room showed no signs of forced entry or exit. The window was still closed, locked from the inside. The door, when they'd last checked, had been locked from the inside as well. It was as if he had simply dematerialized. And chillingly, his briefcase, which contained all his Taured documents, his unrecognized currency, and his personal effects, was also gone. He took nothing from the hotel, leaving behind no note, no clue, no single trace of how he had simply ceased to exist within that locked, guarded space. A desperate, frantic search was immediately launched throughout the hotel, the airport, and the entire city, but it was useless. No one saw him leave the hotel. No one saw him anywhere. The man from Taured had arrived, confused and frustrated, from a country that didn't exist. And then, in an instant, he had simply, utterly vanished into thin air. He was never seen or heard from again. The disappearance of the man from Taured left a gaping hole in logic, forcing investigators and later, countless enthusiasts to grapple with theories that ranged from the mundane to the truly mind-bending. The most conventional explanation, of course, was the hoax theory. Perhaps he was an incredibly sophisticated prankster, a master illusionist, or even a cunning criminal who engineered this elaborate charade to escape detection without a trace. The arguments for this theory are simple. It's the easiest, most rational explanation for something so bizarre. But the arguments against it are equally powerful. The sheer level of detail in his Taured documents, his unshakable conviction, the lack of any discernible motive for such a complex and bizarre hoax, and most importantly, his inexplicable disappearance from a guarded, locked room. How exactly did he do it? A master escape artist? Perhaps, but the feat seems almost impossible. Then there's the mental illness theory. The man genuinely believed in Taured, which could certainly point to a profound delusion or a severe break from reality. Yet his fluency in multiple languages, his apparently normal demeanor, his detailed business plans, and the physical passport all contradict the simplicity of a mental breakdown. And once again, this theory does nothing to explain the impossible vanishing act. The spy theory gained traction, especially given the post-World War II Cold War era. The meticulous cutting of labels from clothes, a detail eerily similar to the Somerton man case, the possession of an unbreakable code, another parallel, and a sudden, impossible disappearance are classic spy tropes. Perhaps he was a defecting agent with an incredibly deep cover, or perhaps he was eliminated by his own people. But then, why would a spy draw so much attention to himself with a passport from a non-existent country? It seemed too bizarre, too overt, for a typical secret agent trying to be discreet. But the theory that truly makes this story unsettling, the one that fits perfectly into the strange, dark, mysterious category, is the parallel dimension or alternate timeline theory. This idea suggests that the man was genuinely from a parallel universe or an alternate reality where Taured does exist. He somehow slipped through a glitch in reality or an unseen portal, ending up stranded in our world. And then just as mysteriously, perhaps he slipped back out again. The evidence supporting this? His consistent, unwavering belief in his country, the authentic but impossible documents he carried, and the ultimate, inexplicable vanishing from a locked, guarded room. If he wasn't truly of our reality, then our conventional rules of physics and detection simply might not apply to him. This theory plays on deep-seated primal fears of the unknown, of the fragility of our own perceived reality. It even subtly connects to the modern concept of the Mandela effect, where large groups of people share collective false memories, suggesting subtle shifts or alternate histories within our own timeline. The case of the man from Taured remains one of the most persistent and enigmatic unsolved mysteries of the 20th century. No one has ever definitively identified him, explained the bizarre authenticity of his documents, or, most profoundly, accounted for his impossible disappearance from a guarded hotel room. It's worth noting that a truly official, definitive police report or government file confirming every single detail of this story, like the exact hotel room or the specific guards, is hard to come by. This lack of hard evidence adds to the urban legend quality of the tale, making it more akin to a modern myth passed down and embellished over time. But paradoxically, this very ambiguity makes the story even more unsettling, because if it's not fully documented, how can we truly explain it? And if it is a legend, where did such a specific, bizarre narrative originate? Despite its official ambiguity, the story has spread globally, captivating internet forums, paranormal enthusiasts, and true crime communities alike. It forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about the nature of our reality. The most chilling human element of this story is to simply imagine being this man. Imagine genuinely believing your reality, your country, your home, only to suddenly find yourself in a world where it doesn't exist. The sheer terror, the confusion, the ultimate profound solitude of being completely dislocated from everything you know, and then to simply disappear. The story concludes with the ultimate unsettling question. What if our reality isn't as solid, as singular, as we believe? What if somewhere out there are cracks, glitches, or unseen portals? Was the man from Taured a random victim of such a glitch, an unfortunate traveler marooned in the wrong dimension? Or was he a master illusionist, a criminal genius who pulled off the most perfect, mind-bending disappearing act of all time, leaving behind a riddle that defies all logic? His story is a chilling reminder that sometimes the strangest, darkest, and most mysterious things happen not in the realm of fiction, but in the perplexing, unexplained tapestry of real life, leaving us forever wondering if he was a man lost in our world, or if we are merely living in his nightmare.